First of all, welcome to the BMW blog. We have a new Zoom podcast, whichever name you want to call it. And today we have some special guests from California. We have the HRE Wheels. They've been friends of ours and partners for quite some time. So we're always excited to kind of talk to them and get their input when it comes to aftermarket wheels. And today we have Alan Peltier from HRE Wheels and from HRE Wheels. And also we have Nico from BMW blog. We're going to go through some questions, that we have prepared. If you do have any specific question that you might want to ask, you can leave in the comments below. We'll try to read them and answer them live. So first of all, guys, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks.
All right, Alan. So, aftermarket wheels, big topic. Been using quite a few of your products also on my own BMW cars, especially on the M cars. So, the one question that we always see is what makes a good aftermarket wheel?
Yeah, that's a I would say that in the old days that was a fairly easy question for us, because I think a lot of the aftermarket wheels, the quality really wasn't great. So we would say, oh, it's the engineering and it's the testing, and you got to make sure you're working with the TÜV certified facility and all these things like that. Today, I'll be honest, I think a lot of the riffraff, to be blunt, has either been swallowed up by bigger companies or something like that. So I think there's a lot more professionalism that I've seen on the aftermarket side in years of late. There's still those outliers, but it used to be when I went to SEMA or something, the SEMA show years ago, I could take a young engineer with me and we could walk through the show and, oh man, okay, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have any engineering on staff. And then you get the BBS booth or something. Okay, they know what they're doing. Or Rays, you can see it. You could just see it visually with your own eyes, because the proportions were just wrong or something like that. Today, it's more subtle. I think most people are using FEA and things like that to do structural analysis on their wheels, and that's always a hit and miss. It's junk in, junk out. So I always like to say with FEA, it'll give you a very accurate, incorrect answer if you ask it the wrong problem, right? So if you ask it to solve the wrong thing, it'll give you an answer, and you'll think it's the right answer to the question you want, if you ask it the right question.
Gotcha.
Today, like I said, I think it's probably a more holistic thing. Just working with brands that you trust, because a lot of the engineering standards are a lot more familiar. People understand. People have some experience. And so what you'll see a lot of times is, hey, we've passed these tests, we've passed these tests. You can see load ratings and stuff change, though. So you may have passed this test, but still not appropriate for that vehicle. And so it's difficult as a consumer to understand these things. And that's where having a body like TÜV or something where you can know that, hey, they're actually certifying their stuff, or they're having it tested. It's not just enough to, test one or whatever. You need to have all of those audits and all those things going on. But I would also say it's more of a corporate trust thing. If you can visit the companies and understand their philosophy and understand that, and see their operations and see how they do things, see how they focus on the details, see how they deal with issues. I mean, I wish HRE is perfect. We're far from perfect, but we do have a culture of making sure the customer's taken care of, and then going back and figuring out what the root cause of those issues were, so that we try to minimize that going forward.
Okay, so let me get a little into more detail. So that's really great background to start with. But tell me a little bit about the design of the wheel, some of the engineering process, maybe kind of walk me through on how do you decide which wheels to build? Do you look at a specific market, a specific car, specific customer? I guess there's so many cars out there. So basically you could build a car for, 1,000, tens of thousands of cars probably, but how do you go about that one?
Yeah, that's a couple different questions actually, because the first part, which is the market, right? What are you going to go after? What are we going to decide to make wheels for? And when you're making wheels for the aftermarket, it can be very targeted. It can be, we're going to go after this specific vehicle. We do sometimes with some of the ultra lightweight stuff, or you're going to make a broad series of wheels, and those need to be fairly universal. And so you'll pick vehicle categories. Say, okay, we're going to pick sports cars, or we're going to pick bigger sedans, or we're going to pick racing, or we're going to pick luxury sedans or SUVs or something. And the reason you have to target those different market segments is twofold. One is the load ratings are often very different. So for high performance cars, they tend to be lighter weight. And so you can have a lower load rating. Now, the load ratings keep going up and up because the performance levels keep going up. And for a while, there was some weight increases on cars that we're all not happy about, kept going up. It's finally starting to go that direction. But then as you start to get into high performance sedans, today, a high performance sedan like an M5, I mean, the performance levels are off the chart compared to an old E39, so weight, right? So the design requirements for high performance sedans for us are much, much higher than they used to be in the old days. And so the first thing I would say is you're looking at, okay, is this a track wheel? Is it a street wheel? Is it a luxury wheel? But then also what's the vehicle application? So you're picking the load rating, right? And then once that happens, you start to say, what market are we going to go after vehicle-wise? Then there's a couple more things. There's, okay, what platform is going to be 3-piece? Is it going to be 1-piece? Is it going to be a 2-piece wheel? And then a major part is the styling direction, right? So if you look at the styling direction, they have to complement the vehicle, and it needs to be appropriate for the vehicle. We always say appropriate around here when it comes to styling, because you don't want to put something on the vehicle that ruins it. You've seen that a lot of times. People put aftermarket wheels on the car, and you're just like, oh man, that's really, you should have stuck with the stock wheels.
Shouldn't be doing that.
And we don't ever want that to happen with an HRE set of wheels. So we are looking at the styling direction of the vehicles, and as they evolve, particularly if you look at like was in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were sort of big and bubbly. And then as you start to move, they look like they went to the gym, they started to get more chiseled and more angled. And so it depends on the general styling direction. It also depends on the target. So like a Lamborghini is very different than a Porsche. So we might make an aggressive style that's a little more targeted to a Lamborghini. We might make something that's a little more purposeful and clean that's targeted more for Porsche. And so, but as long as the load ratings and the weights and everything are okay, they can cross over if the customer wants it. And generally, the styles are elegant enough to work either way. And so that's from a market, I would say an overall view of, okay, when we're going to go create a wheel, what are we looking at, right? But then we start getting into an actual wheel design. That's a whole different aspect. And then you're looking at strength, you're looking at stiffness, you're looking at weight, right? And optimizing all of those things, especially for high performance wheels. We're not making big, actually it's funny, when we do some OE support wheels for some of the OEs, and for testing, they'll sometimes specify lower stiffness levels than we used to, because they're not making wheels for a high performance car, and they don't want to have a lot of NVH, vehicle hardness noise and stuff. And so we're used to making very high strength, high stiffness wheels and low weight, right? And so those things, obviously high strength and weight, stiffness, they don't all go together. And so optimizing, figuring out how to optimize the strength, optimize the stiffness, optimize the mass. There's certain geometric methodologies that you'll use, and then there's a lot of complex detail work that will go in and will get rid of extra mass and all the stuff, complex machining and things like that. But those are the main drivers. And when I say strength, I'm talking about in terms of fatigue resistance. So, you're never going to take the wheel and drive it off the lot and it's going to crack. That doesn't happen. It's, a year from now it cracks or something like that. And that's really the situation. It's not, I hit a pothole or this or that. It's, the spoke cracked because it was under design, or there was a problem or something with the material potentially, but that's very, very rare with forged materials typically. So.
Gotcha. So let's assume that I'm in the market for a custom wheel. What should I be looking for if I'm a customer? Like you mentioned already, the quality. What about the fit? And all the other things that you want to make sure that it fits to your particular car.
Yeah, actually, that's a really tough thing. If you've picked a brand that you trust, okay, great. That's great. That's the first start. Then you've figured out, okay, I actually want this style. That's the second challenge, right? Then you've got finish. Oh my gosh, we've got, I don't know how many finishes, way too many. And so that becomes a difficult thing. And then there's the fitment, which is really something that is difficult to understand for a lot of people. Sometimes people think they understand it and they actually misunderstand it. And so for us, it's best if people contact us directly.
Okay.
Or working with a trusted partner that works with HRE a lot, that's fine too. But we're going to take all that information. So we're going to try and get really what you want from the wheels. Hey, I want to go to the track and boom, 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 boom. Okay, well then don't. But I'm looking at these P200s and I'm going to put them on my Lambo and all this stuff. And it's like, or my M2. It's like, okay, that's a lightweight car, and the P200 is not one of our lighter styles. It's an exotic, sort of more luxury-oriented wheel, and we would probably steer you away from that and put you into like a P101SC or something very lightweight. And so that's something that HRE staff would do, where your dealer might or might not necessarily do that. A lot of times people make the mistake of, hey, I asked for this. It's like, well, that's what the customer wants. Well, the customer may or may not really know what they want. I mean, they know what they want. They may not know how to verbalize it. And they may not know the differences, right? So at HRE, we know the differences, and we know the intent of the different wheel series and styles. And so if you tell us, hey, we're looking for, I'm gonna go track every weekend. Okay, we're gonna push you in a certain direction, right? It's not that wheel's not strong enough to go on the track. It's just you're not gonna win any races because it's too heavy, right? So things like that. When it comes to fitment, that's another thing. We want to really understand what you're looking for. This is a show queen, and I'm taking it to the SEMA show. I'm going to have it dumped, and it's going to be out wide, and it's going to be crazy, and I'm going to camber, and it's not really that drivable. Okay, you work with us, we'll work with a fitment on that, and the tire selection. That's one thing. If you don't know, you're like, I want it to work. Okay, we have a recommended fitment that we're going to do, and it's usually what we've determined is a little bit more aggressive than the OE. Typically, it depends on the manufacturer. Often they're constrained by tire chain regulations and things like that. And so we'll push those out a little bit, but often our recommendation is safe, but it looks good. It doesn't upset the handling. It doesn't, if you mess with the offsets too much, particularly in front, like you can get the steering will get sort of twitchy, and you up the handling of the vehicle if you're not paying attention to fitment. Not everyone thinks, oh, I don't want it to rub. Well, yeah, no, of course we don't want it to rub, but there's other things that can happen, especially with the lighter brakes that are coming out. You're getting a lot of lightweight rotor hats and things, and so if you start pushing offsets out, the car may not have been designed for those extra bending moments that are now getting put into the rotor hats and things, and so it can start to cause noises and things like that on the cars. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And so it's actually a big challenge for HRE because a lot of our customers, I don't know what to get. There's just too many.
So many options. Yeah.
And it's like, just call us and talk to us, and we can help guide you. And that's really what I recommend. And that's where aftermarket wheels is really, really tough. Our philosophy is like, we don't want to ever hurt the car. We don't want to make anything unsafe. We don't want the car to handle any worse than it did. We want to prove all those things, right? So, and look better at the same time. So that's our philosophy and the way we approach it. But I get that it's a daunting issue. And so sometimes with junior salespeople, same thing. I'm like, no, tell them what you think. Well, the customer's asking, I tell them to pick out of these 60 finishes or 80 finishes. No. You know what's going to look good because we do this every day.
Yeah,
Give them we're the experts, so let's use that. And a lot of times our customers really appreciate it. They're like, okay, it's like, well, I'm thinking about this and this. What do you think? Oh, I don't know. Pick one. No. Tell them what you think.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Now, if we're to kind of look at the just the BMW market, which style of wheels do you see being most popular from you guys, and also for what type of vehicle?
Yeah, I think it's actually strangely broad. And it's not strangely broad. It's broad because F80 is a great example, right? F80, F82, that was our number one vehicle for a long time.
Was it really? Okay.
See if it still is. It's has such a broad reach in terms of luxury versus a 488 or a GT3 or something, which are kind of like second and third, right, for us. Those are a little more focused, whereas, an F80 or an F82, those cars have a broad customer base, and people use them for different things. It's like, I'm going to take my kids to school, or I'm going to take it to the track, or I'm going to do whatever. And what you'll see is people go everything. They go from classics, 3-piece, these old school 90s looking wheels, and you put them on and you're like, that's amazing. And then go to one of our street, like a P1SE or the new 2-piece S1SE or something. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's just perfect. It looks like it was designed for that car. Or they go more motorsport, right? And then it's going to be more purposeful. It's about weight. And so with BMWs, because they're fairly flexible in their mission, we see quite a bit of range on the applications. And so I would say, you know, probably the one that we see we see two extremes. We see the classics, which are not super lightweight, they're old school, and then we see like R101 lightweight, which is really, really just take every bit of weight out of it, you know. And they're totally opposite, but those are probably the two most popular things we see. And so it's a very broad. I know that's not a great answer.
No. What's the most expensive wheel set that you've ever made? Let's start first for a BMW and then for other brands.
Well, I mean, I think if we're not going into exotics and things, we used to have carbon barreled rims back 10 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. Looking at normal forged aluminum wheels that we have, we've had some wheels, I would probably say M5 applications that have gone upwards of $15,000 to $17,000 because they've gone crazy on the finishes. And so you're starting with a wheel that's already in that 12,000 retail range, and then you're starting to pile on all these custom things. And so we've had some that are extremely expensive, and I wouldn't know. I mean, we have, you know, let's go through it every month, so I wouldn't know exactly.
What's the range if you're a customer? What's the lowest that you can start at? Let's say that I really want to get an HRE wheel, and what's the lowest one that you can get and still be, you know, good quality and everything else?
So we have two brands. We have our Flowform brand, which is a cast Flowform wheel, and those are about on average about $600 a wheel retail. Okay. So about $2,500 a set. We have different fitments for a lot for M3 and M4 and stuff like that. Yep. And that's entry level set. Or if you want to take it to the track and hey, I want to beat my wheels up and I want to beat up my factory wheel or something, you can throw these on and you can go beat them up. They're really strong. If you start to get into forged, you're probably more in the $4,500, $5,000 range for some of the classics. Those are some of our least expensive. Or actually, we brought back the 540, which was when I first started in '99. Was the wheel we had going. That was our big wheel, and you know, all over E46 M3s and stuff. And so, you know, 540s I think are definitely under. They're $4,500, and for a set, but you can go all the way up, like I said, 12 or so. I would say the most popular, more in the P1 or P1SC type range, S1SC in that $2,000 per wheel, so more like $8,000 retail. And if you do a standard finish, then you're not getting any upcharge. If you polish, you're going to start adding on $500 a wheel for 50 things. So
I'm going to let Nico jump in because I know he's been looking at wheels lately, so I'm sure he's got some questions too.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of some of the advances in material technology. Like you have things like you know, titanium and 3D printing and just stuff like that. Could you tell us a little bit more about that kind of thing?
Sure. I think first let me say most forged wheels right now use 6061 T6, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's a fantastic material. It's very robust. It's strong. It's lightweight. It's got great fatigue resistance. It's got great corrosion resistance. So the base material that we use for our forged wheels is stellar, and that's why 99.9% of forged wheels out there, that's what they're made from. I think in the past, what we've seen a lot, and you see it with the Porsche from the OE side with the 918 GT, is forged magnesium. This isn't like cast magnesium from the 80s, which had a lot of problems with corrosion and brittleness and cracking and things like that. Forged magnesium, you can actually get quite a high specific strength, which is strength per weight, and you can get quite a bit of toughness, which is toughness is kind of what it sounds like. And engineering toughness is the ability to absorb energy, so impacts and things like that. And so with a forged mag, you can get quite a bit of toughness. It still has corrosion sensitivity and things like that. So you haven't seen HRE move into that realm. But also there's manufacturing challenges particularly on the finish side and things like that. So we've been looking at, okay, how do we make a lightweight wheel better? And we obviously keep evolving our designs and learning more on the engineering side and on how to take more mass out of wheels and maximize stiffness and things like that. But obviously a material jump would be really nice. And so we've been looking at some different alloys in aluminum, and there's interesting challenges there. Nothing's ever free, right? You get higher strengths potentially, but it's got more notch sensitivity, or it's got more corrosion sensitivity, issues. And so you've got to knock down these factors. So you might think, man, I can make a wheel this strong. Well, in reality, you got to take that way back. And then also remember, stiffness is a big factor. So if you start moving into different alloys of aluminum, the stiffness of the material stiffness doesn't really change from 66 to say 7 series or something like that, aluminum. And so if you take too much mass out of it, if you haven't turned around and optimized the geometry for stiffness, you could end up having a wheel that now is a little too flexible, right? And those are things where it takes away some of your design freedom. And so if you're only making high performance motorsport type wheels where you think cross-section, all that stuff makes sense, okay, that really works. In some ways, it can be a little constraining. And then if you start looking at composites, I'm not going to say whether we're working on composites, obviously. And I think that we are. I think that the thing that you haven't seen from HRE is there's a lot of carbon barrels, a lot of carbon stuff out there right now, and forged carbon and all these other things. And again, we're looking at the materials. Like forged carbon is great for a lot of things, but doesn't have the stiffness yet that's needed really for wheels. If you look at normal carbon with proper layups and things like that, you can get quite a bit of stiffness. Impact tends to be a challenge. I've seen a lot of companies get around the impact issue with just adding weight. And if you think about like a rim barrel, it's almost the worst place to put carbon in terms of its weaknesses, but it's also a great advantage because you're minimizing that rotational mass and rotational inertia, right? By taking mass out of the rim barrel. So while the reward is high, the challenge is also high. And what you aren't seeing from HRE is us just picking up somebody's rim barrel and selling it. With any advanced materials, we want to be involved in the development, want to have our input, whether we're the carbon experts or not. We want to help drive the design and the structural requirements and all those things, because we are wheel specialists, so we do understand that. And I see a lot of people who make things out of different carbon fiber making wheels, and they bring them to us and we're like, no, you don't clearly understand the other side of it, which is the wheel side. So that's why we aren't just running off and buying somebody's barrel right now, going our rims. Right. And then when you look at titanium, 3D printed titanium.
That was my next. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I knew you're getting there. I'm just
slowly.
I'm just trying to.
Right.
I genuinely think additive is going to change the world. I mean, I'm 3D printing things for my son at home for a school project like that, but I'm not printing titanium, I'm printing platinum. Right. And so, but I do love the idea of being able to create something right there on the spot like that. And it's a lot less wasteful. You're basically using material almost that you're going to end up with in the final part. So I think as the processes get more advanced and stuff, it's going to really, really change the world. Now, that being said, particularly with metals and titanium in particular, there's this idea, with 3D printing, you can design anything and print anything, and so here's the example. You can't interlace spokes like this in normal CNC machining. I mean, it's crazy. These hollow thin spokes, right? That's really, really difficult or impossible with normal CNC, even 5-axis. It's really difficult to do that. So 3D printing allows you to do, and now let me say that, that's not the most structurally efficient way to do something, but
looks really cool.
Okay, so there's the engineer, and then there's the, wheels serve two functions. They got to be cool and beautiful, and they got to work, right? So, but there's this idea that, hey, I can print anything. If I can design it, I can print it. And the reality is particularly with 3D printing titanium, the technology is still relatively young. And so there are a lot of challenges on the manufacturing side, a lot of constraints. And so as you start to go down the path of designing something for additive, it's like, oh, wait, I can't do that. I can't do that. And so this idea that you can print anything, it really isn't real yet. And I think that's just a time thing. And so we are still working on additive solutions. We do want to bring an additive wheel to market. We want to make sure that it is something that is not only unique, but genuinely lightweight and just something that you wouldn't be able to see with normal. I mean, we could print one of our designs. You know, that's not that cool. I mean, you know, we want to print something challenging, but we want to do it in a way that is has a broader market access. This wheel, if we were to make this in one piece and sell it, realistically, this is probably $120,000 set of wheels. So yeah, and we have customers that will buy that. You know, when we show prototypes, there's literally a customer with a Chiron that's like, I need a set, how much it is, I want to buy that set. And it's like, it's not for sale. And they're throwing $300,000 numbers at you and things like this. And so, yeah, there's a small, tiny little group of people that will jump on something like this, especially in the short term, when they're an early adopter, right? But we want to use technology like this to really bring it into the business and make it a part of our ongoing structure and ongoing market, ongoing product portfolio, right? Where it's not just a super crazy niche thing. Right. It's looking at solutions to try and get that price point down, at least so that it's in the mid tens of thousands. If you're in the $50,000 range, okay, you're competing against a forged magnesium wheel, a factory Porsche wheel or something like that. And I would argue that a 3D printed titanium carbon barrel thing is cooler.
Fair enough.
You know, there's a lot more technology that goes into it than just making a forged magnesium wheel, right? And that's sort of a known technology. The performance benefits of forged magnesium, they're great. They're lightweight. They're awesome. But we just really want to challenge ourselves and challenge the technology to try and help grow the technology as well. So it's not quite ready, but we are still actively going after something like that. And it's interesting, titanium, it's got a higher specific strength than aluminum. Obviously, it's much stronger per weight. People don't realize it's heavier. People think titanium's super light. It's actually heavier. It's denser than aluminum. And so it's the specific strength that's higher, not the actual. Right. And so the thing about making a titanium wheel the way we would do it now with CNC machining or something is inevitably you wouldn't be able to get in and machine out those dead spaces where there's not a lot of load, but you can't get to that extra mass and get it out of there. And you would take a massive weight penalty on that compared to aluminum because the density is higher. And so if you're not careful, you can easily end up with a wheel made out of titanium that's heavier than aluminum. And so that's where the 3D printing comes in. It's not that this is just cool. You have to basically get rid of all of the extra structure. All of that structure is going to give you a massive weight penalty. So that's where additive really makes making a wheel out of titanium viable. If you want to make a titanium that looks like a steely or something like that, like a flat plate, then yeah, okay, but why? So you want to have normal proportions from an aesthetic perspective and all the stuff. They need to follow it out. And that's where additive really makes titanium feasible.
Gotcha.
But
Very interesting.
A little young.
Yeah, very interesting. What else I wanted to ask you? What's the one customer that has the most HRE wheels?
You know, I don't know because it changes. I do know of customers.
What's the number? I mean, give me
I was going to say, I know of customers that have almost 30 sets of wheels, or around 30 have bought around sets of wheels from us. The thing is that most of our business is not retail. We do very, very less than 1% of our business is retail, and that's usually a friend or somebody like that, partners. And so we don't always
see the end customer.
And sometimes they're celebrities, sometimes they're there, and it's really disappointing. You find out somebody super famous has your wheels. It's like, oh man, I wish I knew that. But the reality is sometimes our dealer's like, hey, this guy's had 25 sets of wheels he's bought, from you. And it's like, what? Why don't you if we knew those things, and I think this is we need to work on our communication probably a little bit better. So, when we find out we have customers like that, obviously we try to do something for them, because that loyalty is not something we take lightly, and work really hard to have repeat customers. I think once you get into the HRE family, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the table. Once you get into the HRE family, it is often a place you like to stay. And I'll say, it's funny, sometimes it's the people that have had an issue. They have a quality problem or something, and they see how we respond to that, and they're like, oh, there really is value in paying what I paid for HRE. And so you end up building a better, more customer loyalty, because then they actually deal with us directly. Oftentimes people buy our wheels, like I said, they don't actually purchase directly from us. And so they don't actually get to meet us, don't get to know us, and don't ever interface with us. But if they have an issue, we definitely want people to interface directly with us. And that's when they go, oh, yeah, HRE is different. They really do want to take care of this and make sure everything's handled.
Gotcha. So what's your favorite HRE project? It doesn't have to be a BMW car. It could be any brand, or you can just break it down into a BMW and non-BMW car. Any favorite project that you've seen? And I mean, I see a lot of your photos, posted, and we repost some of them, and some of the builds are really cool. Actually, some of them are overly done, but some of them are just super, super cool to look at.
Yeah, I think obviously it's tough for me.
It's very subjective, right? So I mean,
you're so used to it. You're here, and so it's something really unique. Like the old days when I was first here, oh my gosh, all the SEMA builds and everything we did was so exciting. I've been here 21 years, and I've been to SEMA so many times. It's like now what you start to see in this building is I don't know if you saw, and this isn't a BMW, but I forgot what it's called, the little 550 Spider project that we did. And I
never see that one.
Oh yeah, little cars like that are sort of like a throwback or older, somebody has a 2002 or something. That's where you're going to see us more excited these days, because having a crazy Liberty Walk, Lambo, that's cool. We love that, but it's not the same as somebody just spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on something old that they have maybe modernized in some way, and there's a mix, and so then we'll throw in our expertise to help them out. So that's the kind. Oh, actually, oh gosh, sorry. Yeah, I can't remember. There's some. I should have prepared better for that question, because there are some great.
You can actually
like that.
If you just find it, you can drop it in the comments. So after we're done on Facebook, just if you have like some photos, just have one of your guys drop it there. I think
our marketing guys are going to kick me. They're going to be like.
So now let's see if we get even more specific. So I was just thinking right now, as you were talking about this, I think in the BMW world, most of the M cars that you see are like black or white or gray. And I feel like you can match, especially black and white, with a lot of different wheels. But on the F80 M3 and F82 M4, the launch colors were kind of crazy. So they had the Yas Marina blue, and then they had the Austin yellow. So I always see some crazy projects, not from you guys, but from others too. And I find like it's really hard to pair wheels with those particular colors and cars. So let's start with the Yas Marina blue. What color combination and what wheel design would you pick for that one? And then we'll do one for the Austin yellow.
style can change. So like I said, it depends on what you're going to do, what you're trying
So
to
let's
do.
say that I'm looking for something that I don't
But
want to stand out too much. I want to be like, I just want to have some really cool wheels, maybe not too
yeah.
far away from the OEM, so something close to that. But I want to be a little bit special, but I don't want to go to the extreme, you know?
No, you need it to pop a little bit, but you don't want it to
Okay.
be, you don't want it to contrast too much with the finish,
Which is
right?
the opposite of what I usually am. So that's weird.
So there's a couple finishes that HRE has. Like before, everybody just did brush clear, and then it was did brush clear. It was a little darker and made it a little more subtle, but still you can see the craftsmanship. I think what we're starting to see now is we've got a couple finishes. It's polished bronze. I'm marketing guys. And
Yeah,
so,
I think the OEM has one like that too.
it's
So I
like
think,
it's basically we take the wheel to full polish, which takes hours, and it gets to full polish, and then we put a translucent clear coat on it that's tinted bronze, and it has this depth to it that is absolutely amazing. So you could put that on either of those colors, and that because that bronze is not silver, it's not black, it's not charcoal, but it's got this. It's a darker. But then when you get up closer, you're like, wait a minute, there's something really special about that. And what's happened recently, we did with the launch of the S1SC two-piece wheel we have, is we launched it with the same finish, polish, but with a champagne tinted clear coat. And that is almost like a gold color, but not like a really cheesy, gold,
yeah.
but a really, really elegant goldish finish. And it sort of harkens back to like the gold anodized wheels from the 80s when we grew up. Well, not you guys, but when I grew up as a kid and looking at motorsports and stuff like that, that it almost has that anodized gold finish. And again, we tell customers, you got to do this. They're just looking at us like crazy, like, wait, you want me to put gold? No, trust me. It is so gorgeous. And I think either of those work really well. They're not subtle, but they're not garish either. You know what I mean? And they're very different. They're very different than what you can get from the OE. And then when you look at it up close, you're like, wait, there's something special. It's like, yeah, well, a lot of hours, a lot of hours went into those, and they are expensive, unfortunately. But those two finishes, I think, are our favorites. I think we actually did both finishes on the launch of the S1SC. So we show them either in the polished bronze or we show them in the polished champagne. They're stunning. And when I say that, I'm sorry. When I mean it's polished, then it's got the translucent bronze or champagne, but then it's got a satin over it. So it's actually a satin color.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
through multiple steps. And
Cool.
So, again, our marketing is
Very cool. I'm not sure about being young. I think Nico's young, but I don't know about me. I
Yeah,
don't want to consider myself young anymore.
I
I might look young, but
I'm in my 50s, so I'm.
okay. Well, you don't look. I mean, I would say 40. Yeah, I'm 42.
I'm going through full-blown
so,
midlife crisis mode right now.
yeah.
For my
Looking
generation, it's not fancy cars and all that. It's more about staying healthy and all that. Got kids, and we realize we're old when our kids grow up.
Exactly. So Nico, do you have anything else? Because I kind of took over the whole thing.
No, I just had one more question. It was, how do you manage that fine line? Because you just talked about having a wheel design that's definitely less subtle than a stock wheel, but also not garish. I feel like that's a really fine line to not cross. It's tough to do.
It's tough with when it depends on what we're trying to accomplish. With the finishes, with the customer, we're trying to gauge what they want. Sometimes they're just like, I want crazy. Okay. Yeah. We'll give you crazy. Sometimes they don't know, and that's where we'll start to steer them. But that question actually comes up on the wheel design side too. So on the style side. So I used to design all our wheels years ago, and the reality is if I still designed all our wheels, we would probably be out of business because my styling direction is very simplistic. I like things to be sort of clean and purposeful and not crazy. And the reality is what is popular and in demand right now is much more aggressive. There's a lot more going on with their designs. They're a lot more complex. I mean, when I first started HRE, a long wheel spent an hour in a mill, the CNC machine. Today, an hour is a joke. I mean, our average is 3.5 hours per design. Some of our or 7 or 8 hours per wheel in the mill. And so the complexity of the styling has really gone up. And I think that also harkens to the car, right? So the cars, they've got a lot more detail going on.
Right.
And so people want to see a more aggressive style of wheel. And so sometimes our team will come up with ideas, and I'm like, but I'm trying to pull that back because if we have room in the series, what I'll say is, look, we need these ones we know, these are great, they're elegant, they're gorgeous, and they are more aggressive, but they're not crazy. And if we know we've got a good solid foundation, then I may say, okay, it's cool to take that crazy one and throw that crazy one in. And let's see if it sells. And if it does, awesome. And sort of push the boundaries. And so we don't ever want to create something that's tacky, right, Garrett? And so that's where I try to push back. But if I push back too much, everything we do is going to be boring. And so that's a balance that I've had to evolve. Actually, it's just something that's had to evolve for me, and to let us get more aggressive as we go, because it actually goes counter to my styling direction. When you take all these crazy, actually our sales director, he's got a Cayman GTS, and he's got pretty crazy wheel design on there, and it was like, that was not designed with any sense for Porsche in mind. It actually looks fantastic, so
Right.
Sometimes you have to see it before you realize, and that's one thing. Looking at a wheel by itself is totally different when you go and put it on the car. And so I would say that issue more affects us from a styling perspective than a finish perspective. Finish perspective, we're kind of try and give the customers what they're asking for, but we will, hey, are you sure about that? When we see something we just don't think it's going to come out very well, and it's going to look pretty bad. Because we obviously want to reflect on us. We want to make customers happy, but we don't want to have really garish wheels running around. That's not really our style.
Yeah. And I think, I'm going to end with this, but I think when the new M3 and M4 come out, sometimes early next year, I think that's going to be a challenge for you guys. How do you balance that very bold, aggressive design in your face with a wheel design? Because now you have this front end, which is dominating the entire car, the entire road pretty much. And now if you add some crazy wheels to it, you're like way out there.
No,
so it's going to be...
In some senses, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But in some senses, the car, I shouldn't say this, but it's going to be a little out of balance, right? It's kind of like the Lexus generation. It's just like the front grille is everything. And then the rest of the car is fairly sedate. It's like, wait, what's going on? So if the M3 and M4 are going to be that way, having a more aggressively styled wheel will actually help balance out the car's design, I think. So I don't know if you guys know anything, I'm a Honda guy, so, the current Type R is crazy. It's attractive, but I love it. And people were like, oh, you got to take the wing off. The wing's crazy. It's like, no, if you take off the wing, then the rest of the crazy is just, right? So the wing balances out the rest of the crazy, right? So the new M cars might need a little more crazy to help balance out the grille. Now that's my
Interesting. Makes sense.
It'll be interesting, and I think it'll be very interesting. And I got a feeling they're going to go with a crazy color for the launch color, some sort of bright red or something like that. That's my feeling based on what I've seen. So I think it'll be very exciting to see what you guys come up with. So cool. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer. This was awesome. A lot of good info. If you do have any resources that you want to drop, feel free to leave them in the Facebook comments there, so people can actually see it. And Alan, appreciate the time. It was great talking to you guys. Always a pleasure seeing you. Hopefully, this whole situation resolves itself so we can all get together at more events. I was looking forward to seeing you guys at Monterey Car Week. You're always there, so you always have a nice display and spend a lot of time with Michelin and all of that. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen this year. So we'll have to regroup next year.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I do want to just say, I want everybody to, hopefully everybody's staying safe and staying healthy. And obviously I'm not wearing my mask. My mask is right here, but we are open at HRE because we have some military contracts. And so, great, because we're stay alive, but it's stressful for me because we have our production staff here. Obviously, we're all disinfecting. I've cleaned the bathrooms more times in the last 6 weeks. Rooms. And so, but, you know, our office staff, we actually sent them home a week before the California had its stay-at-home order because we knew this was going to be a problem. And so we're obviously taking it very seriously. And luckily, like I said, we have some contracts that allow us to have an exemption and stay open. But we have to weigh that with the health of our team and their families and their friends and everybody. So we want to be a good community partner and do what's prudent and responsible as well. And so I sort of berate the team. It's like, go home, don't do anything else. You know, but it's a tough time, and we're spending it. There's a lot of internal reflection on our culture and our processes and things like that, and how can we improve things. And we want to come out of this even stronger than we would have been, just because we would have been probably mired in the day-to-day a little bit too much. And so I think it's allowed us to reflect a little bit. And I think it'll end up being something that makes us stronger in the end. And I hope that's the case for most people. I know a lot of people have lost loved ones that are sick. So our thoughts and condolences to those that have lost people go out. It's a tough, terrible situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you again, Alan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nico, was good having you too.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll do this again in the future when the new M3 and M4 comes out. So I look forward to that one. It was good talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye now.